Here.
Philip. James is here. Hager.
Here. Yes. Okay. And now we're going to adjourn to closed session.
Yeah.
We're going to reconvene the open session. First, we do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the report on there was no action taken during closed session. So first we need to approve the agenda for tonight.
I move approval. I'll second the motion. I just want to say something for the record about the packet. It came Friday night, 3-day holiday weekend, and our meeting is moved up from the normal Wednesday to Tuesday, shortens it by a day. I try to do a lot of research on the packet, so I spent a lot of time on my holiday weekend reading this packet, and then had to come in. I didn't have time for research on the normal Tuesday. I had to come into the meeting today. So I don't know how else to deal with it other than jamming us all on a 3-day weekend and moving the meeting up. I say that's not make sense at all. So I just want to say that.
I'm hopeful that this is a rare occurrence that this happened.
And if I didn't read the email that I got today about the location, I'd have gone to Central Running Police Authority. I got the agenda. I didn't even think of looking for the location. I just automatically thought it would be in Larkspur. If I hadn't got that email, I'd have started in Larkspur. From there, I'd have started in Larkspur today. So, and there's no one from the public here, so obviously you got the word out to the public that you changed the location.
So we have a motion.
I second it.
Okay, yeah. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, open time for the public. Seeing as how there is none, or that anybody don't want to say anything during the public. Okay, so item number 7. I have to read the special thing. So item number 7 is a public hearing for the annual adjustment to sewer connection fees. I hereby open the public hearing. We'll take comments from any public. I'm going to close the public hearing, and the public hearing is now closed. Now is the time for board discussion and a motion as appropriate. Greg, would you like to first introduce what this is about?
I'll just do a very brief introduction on this item from the board. What you have before you this evening is action or consideration of action to make an adjustment to the sewer service connection charges. And those are the charges, the one-time charges that a new sewer connection or a new property hooking up to the sewer system pays. They pay a fee to both Ross Valley Sanitary District, and they pay a separate charge that goes to the Central Marin Sanitation Authority for the treatment. And as I think several of the board members, at least 2 board members will remember this action, in mid-2013, the district made a long overdue update to the sewer connection fees. And we also completely overhauled the ordinance that provided for that action. And one of the things that we built into that at that time was for an annual consideration of making an inflation-based adjustment to the charges. And the idea being there is that connection fees are basically buying into the capital value of the system. And so construction cost index, inflation is used as a basic index of the cost trends. So specifically what you're doing this evening is considering an adjustment in the connection fees for this fiscal year. They're based on the what's called the Engineering News Record Construction Cost Index for San Francisco. It's a very widely used industry metric for construction inflation. And you will, if the board decides to, you'll be approving that increase. And if you turn to attachment A of your staff report, you can see the actual numbers. And basically, you can see the 2.5% change in the ENR construction cost index, and therefore there's a corresponding 2.5% increase in the per EDU connection charge and the additional fixture unit count connection charge. And you can see the values, so the EDU charge goes up approximately $121 to $4,882, and the additional fixture unit count value goes from $207 up to $212. So that is what you have before you to answer any questions.
Question.
Oh, yes, please, I'm sorry.
The CMSA charges. Granted, that our agency had not increased that hookup fee for almost 20 years. We were way behind the market. We played a lot of catch up. And I guess we're getting closer to what the market and our costs are to provide those services for the backup. But we should know what the CMSA cost is, just so we have a total for folks. We're 4,882, and if we add the CMSA cost, so that if someone says, if I go new home in a Ross family, this is going to cost me to hook up.
Right.
So,
yeah, we didn't put those in this action, Frank, but you're correct, and we do have that information for the new customers because it does add, as you noted, it's I think about 5,000.
About 5,000.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if they've recently raised their rates.
They have. They've done the same thing, though through a slightly different process. CMSA has an allowance for an annual inflation-based adjustment to their charges. And I forget the month, but I do recall seeing that action by CMSA in the past, 6 to 8 months. So, this would mirror their action.
Okay, good. That's total.
Thanks, Wendy. Yeah, that's the form. This is the so when the public comes in, they do get all that information. It has the details on CMSA.
What is their
charges? The CMSA capacity charge is $5,665.
So their fee for a new hookup is more than our fee is
Correct.
for a new hookup.
Correct.
So it would cost roughly $10,547 if you're building a standard home. Standard amount of pictures.
But they don't pay CMSA, they pay us, we pay
We
CMSA.
collect it for CMSA under agreement. The Joint Powers Authority agreement actually specifies that, Michael, that the member agencies collect those fees and pass them on.
So the $11,169 fee,
I think it's $10.
this number here,
Well, I did add in
Okay.
for additional fixture. It's a standard home, standard fixture. I guess they don't have to pay the additional for fixture. So the basic home would cost you $10,547.
Yeah, that's the unit.
got it.
Can I make a motion? Are we
Sure.
done? I'll make the motion for the annual, I'm assuming where's the resolution? I guess?
Right.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
For resolution
I'm sorry.
attachment B, and just quickly, I want to thank Frank for his leadership on bringing this forward and getting it done quickly. So the district has made thousands of dollars since this has been granted, if I'm correct. A lot of them, yeah. And it was like totally lost in the shuffle, so. A good thing.
Second.
So don't we have to say we're gonna adopt a resolution? Don't we?
What I heard was that the motion was to adopt resolutions attachment B. I assume that means resolution 16-1498,
Yes.
adjusting the district
Yes.
SCFs.
Should read it by title. Read it by title.
I think it's a roll call for a resolution, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Why don't you read the resolution by title? That way,
Well,
I have all this.
Okay, so the motion is to adopt resolution number 16-1498, adjusting the district's SCFs effective February 1st, 2016, and that motion was made by Pam Miggs and seconded by Director Frank Ever. Roll call, please.
Okay. Gaffney,
yes.
Scylla, Meigs,
Yes.
Hager,
Aye.
Forsting.
Yes. Aye. Good. Thank you very much. Okay, so that was number 7. Finance Committee, why don't you go ahead and do a quick recap of that?
Okay, the Finance Committee met today at 1 o'clock, and we reviewed the interim financial statement and reviewed the half-year financials. We didn't find any areas of concern. We reviewed the connection fee resolution, which we just adopted, and we also looked and discussed the direction of financial policies, including the budget planning and development and financial reporting. And finally, we reviewed the monthly legal activities. We noted that there was a big increase in legal costs this month. Did you have anything to add?
No.
I wanted to ask, since we're over budgeted for legal by 60%, I think it might be appropriate for the next meeting to perhaps look at how many more months do we have on this budget?
We're 6 months, we're halfway through.
Yeah, because we're 60% over, and I think for a board discussion on how are we going to plan. And this is what happened before in the past, where legal expenses were skyrocketing and the board didn't do anything. It just kept going on and on and on. So I'm just curious, is that a legitimate way to kind of approach this?
You can adjust the budget if you would like, and we've talked in the past about the pros and cons of doing budget amendments.
Yeah, we'll have to because we're.
Well, you have the money, this won't change the bottom line in terms of the basic overall fund expenditures for the district. So that's a choice that you guys can make. I mean, obviously not this evening, but yeah, we're clearly about, we're actually
100,000.
We're about almost double. We're projected into the year about double what we budgeted. And we know with a pretty high degree of certainty what that was for. And it was for items that were not forecasted. We didn't know what their costs would be. But when we net those out, we're actually very close to budgeted expenditures. So that's the nature of the legal deals we've talked about in the past. They're kind of hard to predict. We make, the district makes certain commitments that we follow through on. In this case, it's obviously exceeded the budget. So we can talk about bring back, I think, for you the question of whether or not you want to do a budget amendment, but we are clearly tracking the costs. We know where the money's going and what it's going. So I think that in that sense, you guys, the board is clearly getting, we hope, a very clear picture of what is going on with legal fees, even if we prefer to see them more.
The 2 items in general that we identified that are clearly over was Brett Richards' trial support from Berliner Cohen, the tune of, I believe it's $76,000. At the time we didn't even know if it was going to go to trial. It was unclear and how much support it would take. And then the other is clearly the ongoing labor negotiations, which have gone on much longer than anybody thought. So, yeah, I think we should look at it, but those are the biggies.
Well, I guess if you look at the report on page 4 of 9, it says the district does not have a clearly defined outreach plan. Is that related?
That's an agenda item that we shouldn't be talking
Yeah.
about.
you guys-
Anyway, okay, so I'm just saying, I think it's important to keep note of, and it's easy to forget about.
Going on to the human resources, you'll see that there's a, what is that, 9A?
The report, is it in the item?
Yeah, the one where goodness, human, is that just
Info item B.
info item B, I believe. Yes, exactly. The report on human resource management activities. I don't know if this is the second or third time that this is the format that we're seeing each month, exactly where the work is going on and what exactly is happening to the tune of what percentages. And in fact, we can also see, and I'll just recap the percentages which are buried in each one of the general and individual staff report, that in just general and individual staff report, we spent 32% of the time. And long-range planning and reorganization was 7% of human resources support. And why it was, and like work in this area was limited during December, pending progress in the parallel labor negotiations process. Labor negotiations was 29%, 24% was staff performance management, and 4% was on the policies that the district has been working hard to do, and 5% was for training and staff development, which, if you add it all up, comes out to a total of 160 hours, which is pretty much the equivalent of one full-time district employee. And in my mind, at least where the district is now, the beauty of this is that we got one full-time employee, but with all different varied kinds of expertise across the board. So we didn't have just one person, and it occurred to me that if we had a full-time human resources person here, that person would probably have to go out to some outside consulting to get support on all these very different kinds of activities. So that has to do with the human resources report there. And I'll just, does anybody have anything they'd like to ask just about that? Because then it's a whole completely separate subject. Okay. We met with Jim McPherson, and there's, did everybody get that? They're over there. There was a handout that was distributed. I have one extra here. It's talking about what we're doing, which really has to do with training.
There also, yeah, there's also.
It's this. And we just got this today from Jim McPherson also. What we've all been working on, what the district has been working on very, very hard, is to get competency-based training for all of its employees. And I found this very exciting. And I could, he told us he could go on for 2.5 hours. I probably could also. But basically, What it is that we are, for the first time, instituting a training policy for every single aspect of what we're going to ask our guys to do, so that we really don't, we want to get to the point where we don't ask them to do something that they're not trained in. And using the standard operating procedures, which Steve has been spearheading over here, everybody now has the ability to get trained on every aspect of operations in the district. And we will know exactly who we can go out, who we can ask to go out that is competent to do a particular assignment. And this company which we've hired, which is Competency Training Systems, will come in and they set up a thing for us. And they ask, and they, every employee will be asked to develop all the different things that are described here, so that we can assess whether they know how to do something. And it's not meant to be that they're bad or they don't know something. It allows us, if it's clear that they don't know how to do something, to train them so that we know that they have the ability to competently handle any aspect that we would send them out to do. And and this is leading edge stuff. Very few agencies even have SOPs. He said that 80% of the public agencies out there, this really struck me, have no standard operating procedures whatsoever. So we're doing this, and hopefully it will improve our efficiency, effectivity, and also probably in the long run, injury reduction out there. If people are trained to do everything correctly, even from a thing about how do you lower the camera into the hole to begin to start to look at things. Every minutia of everything is going to be done. And the beauty of this also is that then they're going to capture it's a knowledge base of everybody who works here. We have employees who have been here for many, 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 many years with huge amounts of knowledge. And up until this point, we've never been able to capture any of their knowledge. This will be captured forever, so that anybody who wants to know how to do something, it'll be in here and be able to go forward. It's actually very, very exciting, and I'm really glad that we're doing it. Okay. CMSA.
Well, I just have
Okay, please. Yes.
questions. So this consultant, when did we hire this consultant for this?
So Jim McPherson is actually not working. Sorry, we will look at probably doing a distinct contract with them in the future. But right now, they're working under basically a 6-district initiative, and that is sponsored by the CSRMA. So our risk management tool actually initiated this. So the work that they're doing today, we are contributing just this, I forget the exact amount, it's pretty modest. It's, I want to say like somewhere like the $5,000 to $10,000 range on a check. But we're one of 6 agencies paying for this pilot for helping fund this initiative with CSRMA. And CSRMA in turn is having Jim McPherson and others like David Patzer assist in developing this. So we're getting the benefit of the work products, but we're not putting the entire bill. Down the road, we have them do more, which we would certainly want to consider having them do more specialized work with the district. We have a contract specifically with CPS.
So we don't have a specific contract with either of these two.
Not yet.
Our insurance
We're
consortium is
I forget who we're cutting the check to, Frank. I want to say we're paying CSRMA who's paying the bills in this case. It's a unique one-time initiative with these 6 districts. So, and actually, I won't tell you guys learn all this, but when you have a few minutes, if you're interested, take a look at the attached presentation to the HR report. This is a webinar, and it's also being presented at CASA to the risk management people at CASA, and it tells you all about what this initiative is all about. And it's basically trying to solve an industry-wide problem of a lack of standardized competency and training in the wastewater utility industry. So we're at the very beginning of this, and it's read this if you want more information.
We had 2 committee meetings. How would board members reimbursed?
I can tell you that. Tom and I will be paid exactly the same amount as you today. It is one amount per day, no matter how many meetings you attend. And that has actually been the district policy for many, many years, although it was not followed until we brought it up earlier, as well as you.
Okay, I just know one meeting was a 17-minute meeting.
So
Not
the
today.
cost was 0.
It was Monday, December 14th.
Yes, but that was
I'm just reading
one meeting.
I'm just reading minutes.
That was one week, it's per day. That is the policy of the district.
Okay, CMSA, interesting meeting. And while this was on a consent calendar, I was able to glean some information. I pulled it off the consent calendar. And what it is the CMSA is a Supplemental Sanitation Agency's influent flow. So the water that's coming in from Puerto Madera, from San Quentin, from Santa Fe, and from Los Valley. And it's really important for us to be tracking this flow, to see how much water we're sending over to CMSA for treatment, because it costs us to pump it, it costs us to treat it. But what's really interesting is this one page, and I should have made color copies for everyone. I didn't. It gives one of the graph number 1 is the rainwater number of inches of rain. And as you see the number of inches of rain, you can see jumps in the amount of wastewater coming into the Supplemental Sanitation Agency. And then this graph number 2 is by agency. The agencies with the flows, and you can track the rainfall and the amount of water that's coming in. What it shows is Ross Valley, there's still a lot of intrusion into our system. And I don't know how much we put together. I think we've paid out $30 to $40 million since I've been on the board in 2010 in upgrades, in new pipes, in rehabilitation. And it's not showing up here on the final numbers about what the rainwater's still getting in. So I'm thinking there's something else going on here. And we talked about the low-lying spots at the Larkspur Marina and the Larkspur Boardwalk that during high tides and rain influence that were sucking in bay water and pumping it over to CMSA. We need to really get on this. And I think we can use these figures and these graphs and see we're getting now our own flow meters, and we're going to find out where this water is getting in with us. All the work we've done a significant amount of work to try to upgrade our system, and the water's still getting in with us. So I would hope that our staff could take these graphs and look at our new flow meters and get a report to the board, and hopefully we can start tracking some of this inflow and see where it's coming from. Obviously, I don't think it's a little battery that's letting all this water in. We got to, I think, about 20, looks like about 26 million gallons there during the high rainfall. And Ross Valley was over 17 million of that 26. So we're a big piece of the inflow that's happening during rain events. And I'm just asking our staff, get on this and get us a report, so we need to start tracking this inflow, see what's coming in filtration, see where we're getting it. But, so for CMSA, that's basically it. We did talk about in the public meeting. We talked about what we're treating, the chemicals that we're treating. For instance, dioxin that comes through our system, chronic toxicity, and PCBs. And it's minimal amount of PCBs. But we talked about that, and we put out a monthly report at CMSA about these chemicals. And so I specifically asked for a report, and the staff has sent it to me about PCBs that may be flowing through our system, or all three systems, or all four systems, into the plant. And what they've said is that we don't go over the maximum duty rules as far as allowable amounts of PCBs. And staff over there is looking at it a little closer. So that's about it. CMSA, we had a pretty short meeting. We hired a strategic business planning consultant, and it's BHI Management, who we've hired here before. We've got contact with. So same person. And what else? That's about it. We had our performance metric report. Billions of gallons treated. In 2011, we were treating. Let's say 2012, we treated 4.45 billion gallons of wastewater. This year, 2015, we treated 3.31 billion gallons of wastewater. And that's reflective, I guess, in the conservation programs that the water district is carrying out. So the flows are going down. They're going in the right direction for us. So that's about it. Thank you.
I could be wrong in just 2 seconds, Steve, because you were telling me about some of the preliminary numbers that you're seeing, where it appears preliminarily that
We were at a campaign meeting with Chris Benton. He said the numbers are going out.
that our I&I appears. We don't have enough numbers yet to really be able to say that, but it appears that the work that we've been doing is actually, but we don't have enough data yet to know for certain.
Will we actually have graphs from our filters that will to produce what?
We've been talking about that very topic and what we could bring to you in the near future to help kind of assess the performance of the system during wet weather events. We know that qualitatively we've seen big improvements. We have far less blockages, we have far fewer SSOs, we have way less volume of SSOs. We've had a pretty good series of storms right now. We're peaking, I think, right around, I guess, about 20 or 25 MGD, somewhere in that range. And very big storm cycles, our system, can go up. Ross Valley's contribution can go up to 50 million gallons per day. So even with these recent storms, I'm not suggesting we've seen that flow to reduction, but right now with these current storm cycles, we're seeing flows that are only about half of what some of our historic peaks have been. So we know that in terms of the level of service and reliability, lack of reducing SSOs, which was job number one initially, we've made huge progress on that. The I&I reduction, the same for all of the other utilities in the industry, is a much tougher target because of the distributed nature of it. So we were already talking about that, and we'll be bringing you some graphs and so forth at the next meeting.
Maybe I just want consent calendar, number 9. Matters listed under this item are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. Would anybody here like to pull anything from the consent calendar?
I'd like to pull 9G, please.
Okay. Okay, none others, let's go ahead and, Ann?
Big thank you for putting this on the agenda. I asked for it last month. It's timely, and we're going to, it sounds like, going to donate $1,500 to the conference and go to a very good cause. I don't know if anyone went to the conference last year. I went. I think Greg went. It's fabulous. It is just amazing. So I was wondering if on this item, if we could add that there's 2 free tickets with our the money we're granting to them. But I'm wondering if we could extend the district to pay for any other board member that would like to go. It is just an amazing, valuable education, networking, just great experience. So could I put that out as an amendment to this consent item to add, instead of just 2 tickets, that any board member that wants to go, I think it's, is it 80, how much is it, $85 per person? I think it's 85 if we sign up. If we sign up this month, and it goes up if you sign up later. Anyway.
I think it's a great idea.
And it's in Napa? Is it in Napa this year? Okay. It's in Napa at the Embassy Suites. Includes lunch.
Okay.
So I think just to be clear, so this would be, you'd be authorizing board member attendance at the North Carolina conference. So it'd just be like going to
CASA.
CASA, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, if I understand correctly, we would be able to cover the individual board members' registration and at the board's discretion. Are you suggesting that it was the one-time sort of monthly or meeting payment, or just covering the expenses?
I think that it's like $85 for the day. It's Napa, you know.
Sure.
I don't even know about the miles and all that. But we do have a policy,
Sure.
so maybe we should follow the policy.
Okay.
But I just wanted to, that I think it's a really great experience, and if you can go, I'm going to go. It's on a Friday.
I went last year, I didn't put in for the stuff. Anyway,
No, I didn't either, but I think maybe more people will go. We could carpool.
Okay, so I have a motion on the consent calendar.
With a friendly amendment, is that how I do this? Yeah, with a friendly amendment. To cover costs per reimbursement policy for more than 2 tickets to be allocated to other board members. Does that sound right? Okay.
Why don't you move to approve the consent calendar subject to an amendment on G to include more board members. I'll second that.
Okay.
Then we can approve it all at once.
Okay.
Did you get
I
that?
didn't get that. Okay, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Number 10, moving right along. Discussion and direction on draft memorandum of understanding between Central Marin Sanitary Agency, Ross Valley Sanitary District, and Sand District Number 2 of Marin County for wastewater conveyance, asset ownership, operation, and maintenance. Greg, would you please?
Sure, I'll do the intro and very briefly. So this is, what your board has before you is basically a draft memorandum of understanding between CMSA, Ross Valley Sanitary District, and Sand District 2 of the City of Fort Lauderdale. And it's really basically, it's mirrored off of an effort that was completed in mid to late 2012. And that was between CMSA and San Rafael Sanitation District to do the same basic purpose that this is intended to do. And what it deals with, and I'm going to refer to the map because it's so much easier to talk about, it deals with these basic kind of backbone, what I call backbone force main facilities. And it attempts, the purpose is really simple. And I want to be clear, because I know there's some sensitivities with these issues related to the facility version and so forth. This MOU is really meant to do one thing. It's meant to fill in some gaps that the JPA agreement was simply not able to address because it was, the JPA agreement was written before the facility was built. And so what the agencies have learned over the years through practical experience is that some of the really specific details, like, and one of my probably the best one to use is what we call the San Quentin junction box. It's just a big concrete vault where the two pipes come together, the two force mains, and it has some electrical and some chemical injection equipment and so forth. But it's not even mentioned in the JPA agreement because it was basically a detail. And so what the MOU is doing is supplementing and updating information that is listed in Exhibit B to the JPA agreement. And that's where they talk about the joint and sole use facilities. And that term just simply means joint use facilities convey water, or wastewater to more than one entity. And sole use, just as it sounds like, are conveying flows from just one entity. So we use different names sometimes for these facilities, so I'll try to be consistent. What we call force main 2A1 is what I would sometimes just simply call the tunnel. It's the force main section that was drilled through the ridge to allow flows to the treatment plant. And it terminates at the San Quentin junction box. And then from the San Quentin junction box, you have force main 2A2, which is what we also sometimes refer to as the Ross Valley Interceptor. It's the 54-inch force main underneath Sanitary Boulevard that is jointly owned by San District Number 2 and Ross Valley. So, and then the last thing it addresses is where the Corvadero San District 2 force main comes in and joins. And again, what the MOU is doing is just basically clarifying, okay, for FM, like for the San Quentin junction box, it clarifies that the collection agencies, San District Number 2 and Ross Valley, we own that facility, but CMSA operates it, and they're responsible for operating and maintaining it. And that's just a practical aspect that it's their equipment, the electrical equipment, and chemical injection equipment that's in there. So it's just from a practical matter, it makes sense for CMSA to operate it, even though these two agencies own it. Similarly, on the tunnel, force main 2A1, and these aren't changes to the JPA, these are stated clearly. The CMSA is responsible for operation of that force main, but the ownership rests with Ross Valley and San District Number 2 and so forth. So I won't go through all the details, but the purpose is, again, to clarify those ownership and maintenance and operation and maintenance responsibilities. We had started this effort actually in 2013, just for what it's worth. Some of the board members may remember this. And we pulled it at the last minute because there were concerns that the topic, introduced, the agreement would introduce topics or issues that our legal counsel at the time felt would, potentially undermine our standing in the active lawsuit at the time. And so we never brought this back after that advice. So that's why it's coming back, because that issue's been resolved. We still need to fill in some of these practical gaps on who has operations and maintenance responsibility. What we're looking for this evening is basically discussion, answer questions, get direction from the board, and we'll go from there. So with that, I'll hand it back to the board.
Board?
So are we memorializing what we're already doing, in essence?
Probably the majority of what's in the MOU is memorializing what is already in existence and even repeating what's already in the JPA agreement. But there are some differences, I want to be clear.
What are they?
Well, for example, the San Quentin junction box was not mentioned at all, so we're clarifying that item. Obviously, one of the big differences is the operations and maintenance and ownership for the San Quentin force main, which is specified to be with the state of California at this point. There's some minor clarifications on the Ross Valley Interceptor, the force main 282. This is a good example. I forget the timeline exactly, but I think it was roughly in, say, approximately 2011 or 12, I think it was 2012. We had a contractor out drilling on Surprise Strait Boulevard, and they inadvertently, they were drilling in the wrong location, and they went through a stub out off of the 54-inch force main. And what that stub out was where the Cordillera force main used to connect. The Cordillera force main got relocated to a new location. Okay, this contractor had the bad luck to go through the old stub out that was left after construction. The agencies did a whole bunch of finger pointing and arguing, and I think there was a lawsuit. I don't know the details, but basically all of that was to figure out who was responsible for this, like, 1 to 2 foot stub of pipe that came off of the force main. That got resolved. My only point in mentioning it is that it's a good example of the gaps that existed and who was responsible for that. So that stub is clearly labeled as part of force main 282, which means Ross Valley Sanitary District is responsible for operation and maintenance of it. So in the future, if some unlucky contractor were to do the same thing, we wouldn't be scratching our heads and pointing fingers at each other about who's responsible. It's very clear that Ross Valley Sanitary District is responsible. We drove for the emergency, we would take care of the situation. So that's basically what this is about. And again, I didn't attach it because I felt like we were kind of overwhelmed with paper. But if you take a look at the agreement between the San Rafael Sanitary District and CMSA from 2012, you'll see they're extremely similar. We've just changed, obviously, the names of the facilities and so forth to make it work for the west on the south side of the system. But the intent of this is exactly the same as the 2012 agreement with CMSA and San Rafael. So that, that was an answer, long answer to your question.
So, for my edification, if, let's say, Corte Madera and Ross Valley owns a particular piece, but it's completely maintained and controlled by CMSA, and something breaks there, and it goes all over the place. That's a technical term. Who's it would be CMSA's responsibility, and the State Water Resources Control Board would be banging on our door because we own it, or CMSA because they're responsible for it?
Well, the part about the State Water Board, I'm not really sure, Michael, because that can always be a little complicated, but under this proposed agreement, when an agency has operations and maintenance
It's
responsibility,
their responsibility.
we specify that includes emergency response and repairs.
Okay.
So if there were an example, for example, there were a problem with the tunnel force main section, and the liner failed or something, CMSA would be responsible for taking the lead on addressing that emergency situation. Now, at the end of the day, we would contribute because that's how it works. But in all seriousness, there wouldn't be any head scratching and confusion about who's supposed to handle it. They would handle it.
Question?
Yes,
Thompson.
either way. Frank, please.
So, in trying to do a comparison, current and proposed, it's a little difficult in this packet. But the data page 32690, Ross Valley Force, it shows a large actually only certain facilities. What are the changes from that list? 11 items. because one of them is the force main.
But, yeah, I can quickly check those off, but I think that's useful. So everything that includes Larkspur, that's another good example. Larkspur owns nothing. We annexed all of those facilities in the annexation agreement in the early 90s. So everything that says Larkspur, that's out of date, and that's now exclusively owned and operated by Ross Valley Sanitary District, since we absorbed all of their assets. So if you go down that list, Force Main 281 is jointly owned by Ross Valley and Cordillera, and there's no change there. Force Main 282 is jointly owned by Ross Valley and Cordillera. Force Main 2B, which is exclusively a Ross Valley facility, nothing has changed there. 2C1, which is Cordillera, that is no change. That's a sole use facility. It's Cordillera. 2C2, no change. Sole use facility Cordillera. 2C3, same. 2D1A, same. That was a Ross Valley facility and remains a Ross Valley facility. 2D1B, the 42-inch force main, same. No change except that Larkspur is not involved anymore. That's exclusively a Ross Valley Sanitary District facility. The 2D1B, the 42-inch force main, same. That's exclusively Ross Valley. 2D2, the 36-inch force main, exclusively Ross Valley. These are facilities we don't even talk about anymore because of joint ownership. They're squarely in the heart of our system. We have them. 2E, the 18-inch force main, same thing. We own it. There's no Larkspur. And 2F is the 16-inch force main from San Quentin. That is definitely a big change. And that one is with the state of California at this point. So, out of everything on that list, those are the, most of that stays the same, with the exceptions I just highlighted.
So that one, the 2F, that's the one that runs from, looking at the map, from San Quentin State Prison, Pump Station 11, to the junction box.
Correct. And it's the,
Okay. So that's the one that was under contention in the litigation.
correct. The orange, you got it. Orange spectrum.
There's no mention of the pump station, San Quentin pump station.
Not,
Correct. And that actually was never really open. I don't think you guys recall that. That was already, well, I don't want to get this incorrect. I believe that asset's been to the state of California's.
Separate agreement.
Right. We never.
we oversaw the
Operation
installation
and
of
maintenance, right. And we did the operation and maintenance on it in the past, before we no longer do.
just for the board's information, staff's information. There are two possible competing initiatives regarding San Quentin State Prison that is being circulated right now. Both of them, if either one qualifies and passes, will eliminate death row in San Quentin. Both of them eliminate death row. So when this agency was assured there's no problem, San Quentin will never shut down. Watch what happens with those two initiatives. And once San Quentin is no longer death row, when those passes, I think we're going to have a huge issue with future development.
That's an opinion. I have a question. It says here that there's a recycled water pipeline located in the same trench as the 54-inch Ross Valley interceptor. And where does that go?
It's not quite described out correctly, or it's pretty close, but what it does, Tom, is if you look at
Can we find the
the
map?
tunnel section, the green and black line, there's a 6-inch recycled water line that was put in there during original construction, and it comes out on the Sir Francis Drake side. It's been there all along, and what they use it for now is CMSA sends partially treated recycled water over to fill up that pond that you can see in the photo base. And it's an environmental regulatory obligation that they have from many years back. And that same 6-inch pipeline is what would be envisioned to be used, if I'm not mistaken, if they were ever to expand the recycled water like they've been studying recently with MWD, that 6-inch line would be the starting point. Yeah.
Does it go through the tunnel as well?
Right.
It does go through the tunnel.
Right. Yeah, I think it was, my understanding is it was built during the original installation. Yeah.
We talk about it every once in a while at CMSA.
Yeah.
It comes up.
Greg, on page 2, what is a chemical dosing station?
It is it's basically a place where CMSA injects certain chemicals into the wastewater before they try to do this before it gets to the plant camps, and what it does is it helps with odor control. And they actually there's 2 that I know of, and there's probably others. We have one at what we call Pump Station 13 up by the Pioneer Shopping Center. If you go to that facility, you'll see kind of behind it a storage tank and so forth, and that's where CMSA injects. I think the name of the chemical.
Hyperchlorite.
I think it is probably, and it's again they try to do it upstream before the water gets to the plant. And there's a second station at the San Quentin injection box where they do the same thing with chemical injection lines and monitoring equipment.
Okay, I learned something today. I don't want to know more about the chemical. I'm afraid to ask that because you don't want to make it too out there known. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Have we taken any of our back trucks over and filled them up yet with the recycled water station?
We haven't, Frank.
Available to us.
That's in this
Yeah.
MOU, talks about recycled water pipe. Is that part of this? Is pipeline in your recycled water pipeline?
No, it's not.
different?
Yeah, that's still the CMSA. This is the on-site fill station.
Oh, yeah, I've heard many stories.
I don't know where the pond is. Where's the pond on this map? Is it,
It's the little pond.
is it up on the hill?
No, down the flat, right by the bay. Right by the bay. It was a mitigation measure. They had to,
You mean the old
for
plant?
some, they did.
I think it's, when people go, they want to go windsurfing and all that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
better that it's near the old.
Oh, it's right there.
Yeah.
Right under
Okay.
FX, right under FF2A-2.
Yeah.
Okay. That one.
It has a name, it's somebody's pond, right?
Is that right?
Yeah, it's something
River
wrong.
Water.
Yeah, that sounds right.
There's the ferry.
So I have a question about liability. So this also covers liability, right? And on all levels. Is that what this is also doing besides taking care of the servicing and the pipes and all that? In other words, once this goes through, somebody falls, breaks their leg, or
The pipe breaks.
there's bioterrorism. Sorry, I had to say that.
Yeah.
It's their baby, correct?
I think
Or not.
that within the bounds of saying, what's the connection with who owns this facility and or what's the connection with who operates and maintains the facility, I think it is correct to extend that to some.
Risk management, all that. Okay. Thank you.
I'll just add briefly to that though, I think it only partially covers liability. I think that it talks about who owns it and who operates and maintains it. I'm not sure that necessarily answers the question of who is liable. It depends on whether the source of the liability is related to the ownership or the activity involved in operating and maintaining. And one of the things that I mentioned to Greg on this is that there's not a super clear line here between ownership and own out. Okay, so for example, ownership, the party that owns it has the capital replacement responsibilities. But where's the line between operating and maintaining a pipe and doing a capital replacement? So there's a little bit of gray area that I think that's not I don't think this document is trying to assess liability completely. I think there are probably additional conversations that maybe the entity should be having about how do we see this actually working and where is that line? Because I think more clarity would benefit the situation. I understand that that's not, the specific purpose of the agreement I think is resolved here, who owns it and who has to maintain it. But when you ask, isn't this also trying to address liability? I'm not sure it entirely does. It goes some ways toward that, but I do see some areas that you couldn't necessarily find the answer in this document.
Okay, I sense something, but I don't know what it is. Thank you for that clarification. We're really not going to address that then, correct?
Not any more detail than what you have in front of you, man, in terms of the
Okay.
So yeah, and I think what Andrea pointed out is that's a great way to put it. This isn't the complete answer for the long term, but it's a step. It closes some known gaps right now. And actually, I'll give you a very good example because it's pending. We will need to talk in the future, down the road with our partners about this kind of gray area, because the traditional definitions and the bright lines between O&M and capital replacement aren't as bright as they used to be, say, 10 years ago. So CMSA is planning to begin a condition assessment study. I believe it's in their budget for this fiscal year, et cetera. They're in the early stages. But no one's looked at the inside of that tunnel since it was built.
What year is that?
1970, early 80s, late 90s, or pardon me, late 70s. So, these facilities are 30 plus years into their service life, and they convey sewage, which has gases, and it can be corrosive, et cetera. So, when they get done with that condition assessment study, which itself will be a pretty big undertaking, it's no easy task to go into a force main under operation and do condition assessment. What they come back with is not going to be most likely dig up and replace the pipe, which would be the traditional asset replacement capital project. They're most likely to come back with something like our consultant recently did on the large diameter, which is the state of industry statement. They're going to come up with activities to extend the service life of that facility by another 30 years or 50 years. So the agencies at that point, we're all going to have to sort of, to be clear, it's beyond the scope of this, but it's coming my way in the future. Is that operations and maintenance? Is that asset management? Is that a capital project? Some of that will be kind of an academic discussion in the sense that if CMSA, for example, were to undertake rehab of that force main, clearly the collection agencies are the ones that help pay for it. But a more nuanced situation might arise where it's just us and Cordillera. Same question. And we do a condition assessment of that 50-kilowatt force main, and we come up with methods to extend its service life by 30 or 40 years. We're not going to dig it up and replace it most likely, but what do you start to call it? When does it become asset replacement? So those are some issues that will come our way in the future. They're not time critical, but to be clear, that the agencies have, generally have ways to address these things. But there will be conversations we'll need to enter into in the future before we get hit with these. So yeah, it's an important topic.
So we don't need to approve anything tonight. What did you want us to do?
Well,
It seems about
discussion and direction this evening, and what we would anticipate doing is bringing this back with your direction for consideration of adoption. Unless you have direction on changes or questions that we can address, we'd like to bring it back in the future for consideration of adoption.
Did Central Marin and Sandy 2 already adopt? Didn't they adopt this previously?
Yeah.
Did they?
I don't have everything in front of you, but we got as far as at least one or two of the agencies actually haven't taken the agreement to their board. And we hadn't quite done it yet. We were getting ready to do it when, we had sort of not, obviously we could have communicated more clearly internally, and the legal counsel said, you really shouldn't do this, and we pulled. So we are in some ways picking up where we left off in 2013. But the good example of the completed agreement I refer you to is the one for 2012 between Cameron Health Center District and the CMS. This one's kind of long.
Just a quick question, and I'll just maybe connect to something that is as a moot point, but in this MOU, you talk about unincorporated areas. And is that inclusive of all these, you know, the lists? Does that include, you know, all these force mains, et cetera, as unincorporated areas? Isn't it Murray Park?
You're looking at the whereas statements?
I'm looking in the MOU.
Like Sleepy Hollow is unincorporated, and parts
So,
of Green
but-
Bay are unincorporated.
Yeah.
Right, but I wanted to know, are we including them in this MOU? But I don't see.
No.
We have unincorporated areas.
Right, I think what you're seeing is because I was trying to ask myself, where's the word?
It is in the whereas.
It's in the whereas.
Yeah.
That's simply a statement that says, we serve a whole bunch of communities, some of them are in unincorporated areas of Marin County. That's all it's saying. The parties to this agreement are only the sanitation agency.
Okay, and then right above it, it talks about, I understand biosolids, but other environmental services to the residents. Do you have an example of what that statement means?
Let me see.
It's right above unincorporated, in the same whereas.
Yeah, they do the fat soil and grease program.
Okay.
They do, various monitoring.
They're gonna do some recycled water projects.
I think most of this is language right out of the, a lot of this is language right out of the JPA. In general, environmental services just means the recycled water, again, my best example would be the fat soil grease program.
So this basically is amending the JPA.
No.
Oh,
It is,
it's not?
that's an important distinction because many of the JPA
That's what I thought, that's
a
right.
very different process, and it takes, approval of each of the agencies, et cetera. So no, this is what I would call supplementing it with the memorandum of understanding. And I would somewhat defer to.
Well, doesn't it? Yeah, I mean, the JPA itself and the section is included here, has a section on ownership of properties that doesn't go into this kind of detail, but it refers to an exhibit that does. So the way I view it is that the MOU is, expands on that exhibit and puts more detail to it. I mean, the other option would be to amend the JPA to include, to replace Exhibit B in its entirety and put all this detail. And MOU is just a slightly easier way to do that. I mean, as
Well,
we
this-
talked about, there may be other reasons to amend the JPA in the future, and this would be, if the JPA were to be amended in the future, I would say, why don't we try to incorporate some of this just to have everything in one document?
Yeah, I guess, as you know, the history on the JPA and how poorly parts of it are written, and that's why we've had so many problems with it. I didn't know you could do an MOU without creating an official
Well,
amended JPA.
It's not, I mean, you certainly can, because the JPA agreement doesn't go into that kind of detail. It's actually a good idea for the parties to expand on what their own responsibilities are rather than leave it vague as it is in the JPA.
Okay, I think we've discussed, then we should move on. Number 11. The district is in the process of completing an update to its board policies. The draft policies are scheduled to be presented to the board over several meetings in 2016. The first 3 policies have been developed and are ready for board's discussion and direction.
I have nothing on this. This is other than to say this is the first batch of the new board policies we talked about bringing you, and you have 3 of them in front of you this evening, and we're looking for discussion and direction. Based on that, we would anticipate bringing these back to you for consideration of adoption in the future. And we here is we bring these to you in 2 or 3 at a time over the next, roughly the next 8 to 12 months until we've completed the policy update. So this is similar to the other policy initiatives, the financial policies and the HR policies. So that is what you have in front of you, and we're just looking for input and direction this evening.
The nice thing about doing it this way is it's not like we're going to wait until they're all done and then get them one night to get to 3 o'clock in the morning. If they come in drips and drabs like this, 3 at a time, they're manageable little bites. Board comment? There's 3 in this one.
Who wrote them up?
Staff has been, Mary Brown specifically has been basically leading the initiative at the staff level. She's been working with Ren Ives from DHI and also circulating them through legal counsel review as well. So that's been, and then myself, so that's been the team that's having play.
Did you find these on the internet with other policies from other districts? Or?
Yeah, I looked a lot with the Special Districts Association, CSDA, and took a look at several different special districts. And I read several of them, and then whatever I saw that was in common between all those policies, I brought forward.
I guess, Frank, you had something to say?
Oh,
Okay, why don't you go, and then I got a couple.
So
I will
the
start.
3 are the primary communication, the vision for communication, and some of the content. So those are the 3 policies.
No, I think so. The 3 you have in front of you are.
I just read them off.
Yeah.
One is communications.
One is communications,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. One is GM performance evaluation.
That's the third one. The first one is Board of Directors Basis of Authority. That's number 1, attachment A.
Okay. It's not big,
Yeah, but the nice thing about this is that's one of the things the state said is, you guys are doing things right, you just didn't write them down.
Well, I reviewed the GM performance evaluation of the CDPA. And pretty much it's the way we've been doing it for the last 2 years. In fact, it is the way we've been doing it for the last 2 years. So I think it summarizes that correctly.
I brought the Ross Valley Sanitary District Board Policies and Procedure. I didn't have a lot of time here over the past holiday to go for the policy to this book to see what we've got. So I didn't make that comparison. One issue, for instance, is communications. It says board members should use Ross Valley Sanitary District Power. So I received between 150 and 200 emails today. I sit on 4 public agency boards, 3 nonprofit boards, and involved in a half a dozen major statewide litigations. What I get from Ross Valley Sanitary District is this: trend micro-hosted email security quarantine spam. I get this baby. Sylvester Stallone's and John Legend's homes. A Mercedes-Benz E-Class.
That's
It's
just
unbelievable. I can't access any of this. When it comes in, I delete it automatically. This is what my Ross Valley Sanitary District.org email gets me. It's an absolute.
Can I try to explain it, because I'm kind of an IT guy?
Sure.
Okay.
I can get out of this. I don't want this.
Okay.
I don't want to come into my system.
Okay, well, you don't have a choice, because our names with our email addresses are on the website. They are. And they have bots, what they call the bots.
That's fine, okay.
Okay, so they go out and we are going to get junk. It's going to come in, and so what this is telling you is this is junk for the most part. On occasion, something comes through, and it gives you the opportunity to say yay or nay. The alternative to that is everything comes through, and then most of it's really junk. This is just the Trend Micro is giving you the ability to say, I don't want to look at this junk. It's trying the best that it can to get rid of it.
Well, I'm gonna try to block it. How am I gonna block it? I'm gonna block anything with Ross Valley Center. Because it's impossible for you to try to deal with. Well, either that or someone's gonna have to provide me something I can accept Ross Valley Sanitary District at, separate from my own personal email. I don't know how I can set my iPhone up to receive only Ross Valley Sanitary District email. I can't.
Well, you can. Okay,
And so it's created a problem for me.
I understand that, but we have this little problem like with Hillary Clinton or with Colin Powell and what's his name, the general, who we're all using. I mean, we aren't in the same class as they are, but we're public officials, and technically we're supposed to use strictly RVSD.org as our means of communication, because our servers keep a historical copy of everything that we send through RVSD and everything that we receive through RVSD. It belongs to RVSD, so we really should, all of us, be strictly using, for RVSD purposes, the RVSD email. And
The RSVD, Ross Valley Sanitary District needs to provide me a device that I can accept these emails.
you have Internet Explorer at home?
I have an IT person.
Okay. I mean, it's.
So you guys are having difficulty using the district email. We hear you. That Frank you're referring to is the spam filter. It's not perfect, but that's what it is, a spam filter. I don't want to lose the basic issue here is you have a district email. The policy recommendation is that for Ross Valley Sanitary District business, you utilize that email for communication.
Okay, can you provide me a device so I can get all of your emails on Ross Valley Sanitary District? But I don't have to.
Okay, then we should work with you to get you set up with our IT person to get you guys some one-on-one training because this is not unusual. We can all get all of our emails on any of these devices these days. We all know that. We all manage at least 2 or more email accounts in our lives, so we all know that. If you're having trouble with the RVSD email, it's standard just like any other. It operates off of the web-based, the web-based Outlook service you can utilize. So these are technical issues that we can help you with, or Ryan can help you with. But I want to separate those out from the policy issues. I don't think anyone's suggesting we can function without Ross Valley email. I don't think that we could. So we have a technical issue of preventing spam and so forth. But I would just suggest setting that aside from the policy discussion, which is when you're communicating on Ross Valley matters as a Ross Valley public official, should you be using your Ross Valley email? I believe the answer the recommendation we're providing and past legal counsel have provided, and that's what's in the policy is, we would strongly encourage it.
And I'd like to just briefly add, I know that some and perhaps all of the board members have their Ross Valley email account set to forward automatically to your personal email. And the problem with that is when that happens and then you push reply, it comes from your personal email address. And so that's doing that is would be inconsistent with the policy. And I can talk for a long time about what the risks are to you personally, what the risks are to the district of doing that. But suffice it to say that I strongly recommend against having your Ross Valley account forward to your personal one, because it blurs the line between personal and business. And not only is that an optical issue, as we've seen with Hillary Clinton and others, but it's also an issue when there's a Public Records Act request, and then you can't, you may not be able to argue.
Yeah, just send them a anyway, CC the meeting, we'll review and get them incorporated into a red line, revision mode, if you want to call it, and we bring these back for, consideration and adoption in the future.
A question. So this attachment A, it's got the heading, for instance, budget planning and development. Exists update. Millage check. Plans check, first draft check. Status review, board review, final draft on the top. Then underneath it is budget guidelines, annual adoption, manager review, budget amendments, budget line, transfers of financial, 5-year forecast. And it's all blank across there. Is it eventually going to be filled in?
Well, so those subtopics, right, they're incorporated into the budget planning and development topic. So in other words, you look at the one draft policy of budget planning and development, it actually covers each of those subtopics. So when Wendy drafted this table, we're just trying to show all of the areas that we're going to cover, but we don't do a separate policy on each of those. So those are rolled up into the budget planning and development topic. And we did that, from a practical perspective. So rather than having, say, 50 policies, we have 10, and each of those 10 covers a cohesive, range of subtopics. So when you look at those, that's how you should read them. Think of those as like subchapters in the budget planning and development policy.
So they're included in attachment C.
And we did that, on purpose to try to take a lot of topics and roll them up in a manageable, cohesive way, so we're not looking through, dozens of these in the future. Because as you can see, even from the examples you have in front of you, annual adoption, well, that might be a paragraph. But if we want to say something very specific about it, which is, yes, we adopt a budget every year, but that's like maybe one paragraph. So those are not individual policies.
And if I could just add that attachment A with the list of proposed policies and subject matter is another area that I would invite comments and input from the board on, because the header where the check marks are general areas, and then the indented are topics that I felt should be covered in that area, and they might involve one paragraph, they might involve 4 paragraphs to cover it, but they're just simple topics, if you will. And if you think there's a topic, or even a whole glaring area that you feel is being covered, or if you want to know where I think an area of interest of yours fits in these topics, by all means include that in your email. This is still, still evolving.
Thank you. Okay. If there's anything glaring, let's go ahead and move on to verbal report by board members and requests for future agenda items. Board? Anything that we haven't discussed?
I'm the general manager. Let's see. So, item 13. So, I was used to having annual reports as a city or town council member. Get a report from the police department on the criminal activity that occurred during the year, how many felonies, how many types, how many misdemeanors, number of traffic accidents, where locations, high capacity accident locations. And so we know what was going on with the police department. Same with the fire department, annual report. Same with the building department. see how many permits were issued during the year, number of inspections, a dollar amount, and value of the permits taken out for the year, and department by department. So our agency ought to have a report that would say, this past year, we talk about the number of spills that occurred, locations, the size of them. Talk about the length of pipe that we replaced or rehabilitated, the dollar amount we put in. So at the end of the year, the board can say, look, we did this past year. I know we have a lot of verbal reports and talk about what a great job we did. But if you get down to statistics and actually show some numbers, so the board has a much better sense about how we performed during the year. And it should be fairly easy with since we only provide sewer service. We don't provide police services or fire services, or street services. I don't know what the board thinks about that, but
You mean at a very high level? I mean, like, if just for instance, we do have this that we get every year,
Yes,
which
I
is
think,
that's not what I'm talking about.
yeah, I think so. In fact, part of what we are planning on doing, I think we'll be responsible for that, is it's listed in multiple places in the draft strategic plan. Is that we recognize that we basically need to refresh and update our, people use different things, but basically our metrics for reporting how the district is doing. So it would be, there's a lot of good examples out there of what agencies do, the things you just mentioned. They could be annual reports. In some cases, we probably do some topics on a quarterly basis because they're more timely. But what I want to be clear on, we kind of went into a lull in a sense of hitting you guys with a whole bunch of operational reports and so forth. And we partially did that on purpose, and that when a couple years ago we were looking at all the information we were giving you guys and going, what do you do with this? It wasn't apparent what all that was being used for. So we sort of throttled back and we revamped a lot of the reporting, like the annual budget documents and so on. But what's happened in the interim is we haven't gotten back on track of having good, regular, quarterly and annual reports that give you that big picture summary of how the agency is doing. So, we have parts of it, like we have the quarterly financial reviews, which I think fill a nice gap. But this is something that we're basically shifting gears towards, which is these quarterly and annual reports that would give you guys things like SSO performance, capital project delivery performance, all the key indicators of how the agency is doing it.
Just do hookups. I don't know if we had 10 new homes built in Ross Valley last year, or if we had 100. I don't know.
It's really all in here. It's really quite a good statistical summary. All of it is.
Does it tell us how many new homes were built?
Yep.
In Ross Valley?
How many EDUs we have?
Maybe I didn't see that.
But I think I understand what you're looking for.
Assessed value.
We should be able to move towards bringing those kind of products.
It's really pretty good.
I'm also just going to make a suggestion. This is just me. Is that we have the most amazing personal opinion. This is staff, and if you go and you sit, like I've been during this last storm, I asked Steve, please, if there's anything interesting going on at SSO or whatever, let me know. Text to me. I asked him to do that, and I talked to him. And I come and I bother Catherine. I say, what's going on? What's happening? So rather than once a year, something happened where then we have to all be surprised. If we're going to do that, maybe we have a one-page sheet, which gets updated for each board meeting. But I would highly recommend coming in and spending a few minutes. I'm very pleased you guys during this last deluge and knock on wood, but our system has been operating phenomenally.
We do know we need we need the numbers, we need useful metrics. So
It is a good idea.
It is.
Like how many sewer laterals we've done in the mill, and the loads, and overflows and flows for the month. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
don't make
it's
it
good.
too difficult.
It's good for campaigns too. It's true, you need that data, that measurable data, it's really important. I just have a couple of things. What happened to the Lifeline program? It kind of disappeared.
Well, we realized our next step was to start looking at the administrative infrastructure for
Okay.
it, and what that process can look like, and bring that back to you guys. And
Soon?
that's what we'll do, yeah.
Okay.
So,
And then I attended a LAFCO meeting. They are starting for the sewer districts, wastewater, municipal service review. It'll probably take, I think, a year. They're saying 9 months, but I think ours is different, and each one is different in its own way. And they had a rough draft of certain questions they're going to ask, but it's just the very, very beginning. So if you have any questions you want to send to Keen or me, I'll be going to those meetings or once a month.
And you're on the technical committee.
correct, yeah, we're having our next meeting in just I think a week and a half.
Can you give a little summary about how they're going? I'm just
I
curious.
can in the future, yeah,
Okay.
we had one introductory meeting at LAFCO, like, are you guys, just to get the process going. Our first official meeting, we'll actually talk about substantive issues, will be, now that the LAFCO board has approved the municipal service review scope and endorsed the technical advisory committee, et cetera. I think, I don't know my calendar, but somewhere in the next week, roughly week and a half, we're going to kick-off meeting.
Okay.
And I'll definitely keep the board updated on those meetings and what the actual.
And by the way, for the water study, which I think they have one more meeting maybe to finalize that for that MSR. They did incorporate climate change. So I think we should too. Okay.
I think that's already been brought by I know the TAC group mentioned it when we first met.
Okay.
If at our last CMSA meeting, it's going to come back to the board in February meeting. We talked about the strategic plan and update for the next 5 years. Strategic plan, and the Santa Fe representative is recommending that we ask for a study on consolidation in our strategic plan. So
We already did.
that'll be some interesting discussions.
Yeah.
I said Lost Valley has a very comprehensive consolidation study. It's been done by an independent party from outside of California. And I said, CMSA of Santa Fe and Port Madera were part of it, but it's a very well-written document, and you should access that consolidation study before you go hire someone to do another study. But it looks like they're going to be doing another study. So we have to get prepared for the consolidation study.
Okay. Next meeting, February 17th. Okay. 5 p.m. Move to adjourn.
And it's up on the Supreme Court right now, that a member of the public can't see your personal emails if you're doing district business office.
So let me just say how I use it, just real quick. Is I do have it forwarded to my personal account, just so I can look at it and read it without having to log on to the Outlook to see it. It's very convenient for me to see it. I will never, this is just me, reply to that email. If I look at it and I say this requires a reply that I take care of, then I either wait till I get home and can log on, or I take care of it, but I log on to the RVSD Outlook and do it from there. So I don't have a problem forwarding it as a means of alerting me But
I don't love it. I don't love it because it still
Really?
blurs the line. Because you still have Ross Valley business in your personal email, I mean, you still in your personal, you don't want it in your personal email.
No.
Right, I don't either. I don't want it either.
Not when you get.
Yeah, and it may require that you log in separately to your Ross Valley email address.
Okay, so you're saying not even to look at it.
I'm uncomfortable. I'll think about it, but off the top of my head, it's still, you open up your personal email box and there's Ross Valley stuff, even if you're not replying. You're still receiving Ross Valley updates or business in your personal email account. It would be cleaner for them to actually be totally separate. That would be the best. That would be the best practice. And I'll certainly let the board know in the Supreme Court. There's a very well-known case out of San Jose that is up on appeal right now on
So
this
can I
very
bring
issue.
my iPhone in here and just set it up?
Yes.
Yeah, the IT folks can absolutely help.
Okay.
Yeah, Ryan's great.
And I click that trend spam. Most of the time I click it off, but every now and then there's something like the California Special Districts or others that are good on it. A lot of the times it's spam, it's junk, and I eliminate it.
Okay.
And you can also tell that trend micro to approve the
Yes,
sender so that
Oh, I can.
it doesn't continue to dump it in there.
exactly.
I can block it.
Anyway, so these are the first three. And, perhaps in the interest of time, because these are not set in concrete, this is just for discussion, can we send any thoughts or ideas to Mary? And then we can represent any changes, thoughts, notions at future board meetings. And not have to iron out anything for that. That's very interesting about what we were just discussing.
Yeah.
So on the issue of the basis of the authority of the board, the elected representatives we act as board. From time to time, we're public functions, and someone asks us a question. We should probably always say we're speaking for ourselves. We're a public function.
I would say if you're at a public function representing the board, if you're asked a question about.
No, I'm not representing what just at a public function. I attend an awful lot of public functions.
Right.
And so a question will come up about the operation here or something, what's going on, you guys have to, answer the question. Very forthcoming about it, answer the question.
I would agree, though. I would clarify if what you're saying, if your belief on something is inconsistent with the district position on it. I would clarify that. I think that's what you said.
That's not good. And sometimes I don't know the district's position. For instance, I was at a Lost Valley Flood Control Advisory Board meeting, and they were talking about detention basins. And I know we have sewer lines that are in two of the locations where we want to put detention basins. And I was at that meeting, and a number of us from different communities were saying we don't agree with detention basins. And I said, what you want to be doing is working with the Marin Water District because they have water shortages, and they might see a way where they can capture some of the stormwater for use during the summer. You want to be talking to Rossville Sanitary District because maybe we should be part of this whole process because we're getting inundated with infiltrations from these heavy rains, and we want to stop that. So that's the kind of statement I made at the meeting. I didn't say that, but we should be part of the solution. That's my personal view. And I probably should have just said, by the way, it's my personal opinion that we should be part of this overall solution. I didn't say that, but I said, you need to be included in this, you need to be including in the deal overall.
Yeah, I think it's important to be very careful when people call me as this chair where I sit. I say, I cannot speak for the board, but I will listen to what you're saying and talk to the board. I can be a mouthpiece to the board, but I will not do that, because then it could come back, it could be misconstrued as this is what the board says.
Well, on a number of occasions, there's been quotes in the newspaper, and I think this policy is going to strip that. In essence, is what I wanted to bring up, because newspaper people call. I don't know who they call here, but I get many calls. A lot of times, I just won't comment, or I won't call them back, or they already have written their article, whatever. But I just wanted to clarify, is this saying that if, let's say, for example, the San Quentin settlement, and they call each of us, and we give some response or whatever, is this saying that we don't have the right to do that, that the only spoken information comes through the chair? Is that correct?
No, I think what this is saying is, well, that's a little bit of an unusual case because settlement discussions took place in closed session. So there's a pretty clear restriction on what you can talk about.
No, this was after.
Okay, so afterward,
yeah.
I think that what the policy is saying is that when you're asked for a district position, you convey the district position. I think you're treading into unusual waters if they're saying, well, what's your position on it? Because frankly, then you're getting into how you may have voted on something, right? I mean, it's not to say you can't have an opinion about how something turned out. What the policy is after is you not suggesting that your position is representative of the board's position on something.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. Okay. And a lot of times what I tell people is come to our meetings.
Yeah.
Please come to open time. And I think you can. It's a little hard sometimes to separate out you as the ratepayer and you as a board member, but you can speak as the ratepayer even though you're elected. So that does happen at times.
On the issue of broadband considerations, recently the Marin County Board of Supervisors had a meeting, and they put an item on the agenda. They didn't put the item on the agenda, but the president of the board had a subject discussed for like 26 minutes, and it was a contentious issue, and there were folks who would have been at that meeting if they didn't know it was going to be discussed, and it wasn't. And so, independent nonprofit sued the county mayor in court. The county said they defended it. We have a right to discuss these things. Staff made a presentation, and the board talked about it. It went into court, and there were witnesses, and the judge ruled against the county. And the county said, "What do you mean? You have the right to do this." The judge said, "No." It hasn't been appealed, so it's not going to be case law. But the county of Marin got nailed for a bribe violation for 26 minutes of a discussion on housing. It shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, you're right.
Maybe you should just, our council should just take a look at that. So that maybe direct an email to us. We should probably to Andrea, just so that she can understand what kind of trouble supervisors are too.
I think, in the interest of time, if anybody has any further comments or changes or ideas, please email them to Mary, who can.
RVSD.
So what we would do then, if you can send any specific edits or comments that we can address, what we can do then is bring these back with any necessary revisions or changes so you can see it, and then you can consider it. Ideally, what we'd like to do is bring it back for consideration of adoption, and you would see what specific issues have been provided by the board members before you ask for that action. So I know it's a bit to go through, so take a read through it on after this, and funnel your comments or any suggested edits to Mary Brown, and she will coordinate with Andrea and myself to get those reviewed and incorporated into a revision code markup, and then we'll bring that back to you next month so you can see exactly what's been edited and consider it for adoption.
For instance, this iPhone has 76,000 messages on it, including some of the ones.
So
Okay, separately, but let's move on.
Maybe I should just buy myself a device that accepts only iPhones.
You could actually set up multiple accounts on.
I have multiple accounts on this one already. I don't need a third account.
And just also so you know, the Outlook, online Outlook does not store anything on your phone, does not store anything on your computer. It is 100% completely cloud-based. So when you look at it with any device that you've got, no information is stored on that device. Whether it's a tablet or a computer, a Mac, a PC, or whatever you've got, Unix-based system. Anyway, number 12, if we can. Discussion and direction on financial policies, financial policy introduction, budget planning and development, and financial reporting. This again is for discussion and direction only, and again, these are just some of the financial policies, many of which we already are doing, but we hadn't codified. And again, this is just a few, so perhaps somebody could give
well,
a
there's you have the three policies, drafts, Wendy has drafted these, and we reviewed them at the staff level. The second page of the staff report has the list of topics that will be bringing you under the financial policies, and same basic process. We'll bring these to you and ideally in batches of 2 to 3. We ask for discussion and direction at the first cycle. We'll incorporate your feedback and bring it back for consideration of approval at a future meeting. So this is the first batch, and same, a little bit different format, but same basic idea. You have a tracking table of how we're doing and getting these through. And these are just the initial 3. They're very high level, but I think the financial policy introduction one is very important from the board's perspective. It's kind of stating we think ideally why and what the benefit and purpose is of the financial policies. And then we have budget and financial reporting. So anyway, questions and discussions?
I might just, we did discuss this today in the Finance Committee meeting. On attachment A, one of the columns that is slightly ambiguous is union review. And that isn't, yes, we've done it, no, we haven't. It's, yes, it's required, no, it's not. So if there are any of the financial policies that require a meet and greet, whatever it's called, meet and confer, then there would be a yes in there. It's like I don't believe that any of these policies here require a union review, but that it isn't whether it's been done or not; it's whether it's needed or not.
And the Finance Committee did have some edits, especially
Like,
on
for instance,
some small stuff. And we also noted that in that attachment A, how few of these policies have been written previously. And so this is, for the most part, new territory for the district.
Yeah.
And we looked over all 3 of them. And basically agreed with a couple of comments.
yeah, a couple little comments. So I would suggest the same thing. We don't have to go over this in huge detail tonight because it is a lot to take in, but if you had any obvious questions.
These are checklist items too from the state audit.
We got a lot of work to do.
All of these, yeah.
Yes,
There's only a couple of few yeses.
I know.
Wow, I'm
Well,
sort of shocked.
Can I also just say that it is quite possible that in 1940 something, somebody wrote a policy, but in recent years, those policies haven't been brought forward and made an active part of our, so we don't have the institutional knowledge of them. And there's 100+ years worth of documents to go through that are not digitized. So we're assuming, because we don't know the policy, but it doesn't exist.
Mhm. But most of these that you've listed don't represent a change in what you're doing.
Correct.
Some do, right? Or not too many?
Not too many.
Mainly codifying what we do already.
Mostly codifying what we do. Of course, that satisfies the comments from the state auditor. However, it also is beneficial because it will provide all of us with a foundation to go back to so that we're all building off of the same foundation rather than having things go in different directions and have different understandings.
Well, I appreciate the policy committee. I did it a long time ago, but I didn't have this list like you all have, so. But a lot to be done.
I remember the state had a comment on the financial reporting. And I went through a preview of what they were going to, I was president at the time. And they had a comment that we don't have good financial reporting. And that's what they said. And I said, wait a minute. And we went through everything. And really what they were saying was, well, you don't have a formal policy to do all that. And so a lot of the financial reporting guidelines are things that we do right now.
And the beauty of codifying this, of course, is that it's a living document. And subject to review all of the time, and as accounting practices may change or computer information may change, then we've got some basis from which to work instead of something from 1942 in a drawer. Who knows what we don't even know about. This is all online. Are these policies public documents? Yeah.
Yes, and eventually this will be something that anybody could look at on our website. I mean, our intention is to make our policies public. And as I've been writing these policies, I've been drawing from other agencies, from districts like ours, sanitary districts, to even municipalities, even out of state, looking at their different policies. So it's not only helpful and transparent to the public, but we could someday have another agency looking at us trying to develop their own policies. It's just very useful, very helpful.
So maybe this is the same thing. If people have comments, we would send them to you.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we,
Or you could send them through Rick, either way.
Yeah, just send them to Winnie with CC to me, and we'll review and get them incorporated into a design revision mode, if you want to call it, and we bring these back for consideration of adoption in the future.
A question. So this attachment A, it's got the heading versus budget planning and development. It exists update. Millage check.
What's that?
Status check versus first draft check. Status review, board review, final draft of the stock. The other reason is budget guidelines, annual adoption, budget review, budget amendments, budget money, transfers of financial, 5-year forecast. And it's all blank across there. Is it eventually going to be filled in?
Well, so those subtopics, right, they're incorporated into the budget planning and development topic. So in other words, you look at the one draft policy of budget planning and development, it actually covers each of those subtopics. So when Wendy drafted this table, they're just trying to show all of the areas that we're going to cover, but we don't do a separate policy on each of those. So those are rolled up into the budget planning and development topic. And we did that, from a practical perspective. So rather than having, say, 50 policies, we have 10, and each of those 10 covers a cohesive, range of subtopics. So when you look at those, that's how you should read them. Think of those as like sub-chapters in the budget planning and development policy.
So they're included in attachment C.
And again, we did that, on purpose to try to take a lot of topics and roll them up in a manageable, cohesive way, so again, we're not looking through, dozens of these in the future. Because as you can see, even from the examples you have in front of you, annual adoption, well, that might be a paragraph, but if we want to say something very specific about it, which is, yes, we adopt a budget every year, but that's like maybe one paragraph. So those are not individual policies.
And if I could just add that attachment A with the list of proposed policies and subject matter is another area that I would invite comments and input from the board on, because the header, where the check marks are general areas, and then the indented are topics that I felt should be covered in that area, and they might involve one paragraph, they might involve 4 paragraphs to cover it, but they're just simple topics, if you will. And if you think there's a topic, or even a whole glaring area that you feel is being covered, or if you want to know where I think an area of interest of yours fits in these topics, by all means include that in your email. Because this is still, still evolving.
Thank you. Okay. So there's anything glaring, let's go ahead and move on to verbal report by board members and request for future agenda items. Board? Anything that we haven't discussed?
I'm the general manager. Let's see. So, look, item 13. So, I was used to having annual reports as a city or town council member. Get a report from the police department on the criminal activity that occurred during the year, how many felonies, how many types, how many misdemeanors, number of traffic accidents, where locations, high capacity accident locations. And so we know what was going on with the police department. Same with the fire department, annual report. Same with the building department. We see how many permits were issued during the year, number of inspections, a dollar amount, and value of the permits taken out for the year. Department by department. So our agency ought to have a report that would say, this past year, we talk about the number of spills that occur, locations, the size of them. Talk about the length of pipe that we replaced or rehabilitated, the dollar amount we put in. So at the end of the year, the board can say, look, we did this past year. I know we have a lot of verbal reports and talk about what a great job we did. But if you get down to statistics and actually show some board has a much better sense about how we perform during the year. And it should be fairly easy since we only provide sewer services. We don't provide police services or fire services or street services. I don't know what the board thinks about that, but
You mean at a very high level? I mean, like, if it's just for instance, we do have this that we get every year. Which is
That's not what I'm talking about. Yeah, and so in fact, part of what we are planning on doing, I think will be responsible for that, is, it's listed in multiple places in the draft strategic plan, is that we recognize that we basically need to refresh and update our, people use different things, but basically our metrics for reporting how the district is doing. So it would be, there's a lot of good examples out there of what agencies do, the things you just mentioned. They could be annual reports. In some cases, we probably do some topics on a quarterly basis because they're more timely. But what I want to be clear on, we kind of went into a lull in a sense of hitting you guys with a whole bunch of operational reports and so forth. And we partially did that on purpose, and that when a couple years ago we were looking at all the information we were giving you guys and going, what do you do with this? It wasn't apparent what all that was being used for. So we sort of throttled back and we revamped a lot of the reporting, like the annual budget documents and so on. But what's happened in the interim is we haven't gotten back on the track of having good regular, quarterly and annual reports that give you that big picture summary of how the agency is doing. So, I mean, we have parts of it, like we have the quarterly financial reviews, which I think fill a nice gap. But this is something that we're basically shifting gears towards, which is these quarterly and annual reports. I would give you guys things like SSO performance, capital project delivery performance, all the key indicators of how the agency is doing and carrying out
do hookups. I don't know if we had 10 new homes built in the Ross Valley last year, or if we had 100. I don't know.
It's really all in here. It's really quite a good statistical summary. All of it is.
Does it tell us how many new homes were built?
Yeah.
In Ross Valley?
How many EDUs we have?
Maybe I didn't see that.
But I think I understand what you're looking for.
Assessed value.
We should be able to move toward bringing those kind of products.
It's really pretty good.
I'm also just going to make a suggestion. This is just me. Is that we have the most amazing personal opinion. This is staff, and if you go and you sit, like I've been during this last storm. I asked Steve, please, if there's anything interesting going on at SSO or whatever, let me know. Text to me. I asked him to do that. And I talked to him. And I come and I bother Catherine. I say, what's going on? What's happening? So rather than once a year, something happened where then we have to all be surprised. If we're going to do that, maybe we have a one-page sheet, which gets updated for each board meeting. But I would highly recommend coming in and spending a few minutes. I mean, and I'm very pleased, you guys, during this last deluge and knock on wood, but our system has been operating phenomenally.
We do know we need the numbers, we need useful metrics.
It is a good idea.
It is.
Like how many sewer laterals we've done in the middle, and lows, and overflows and flows for the month. Don't make it too difficult.
It's good for campaigns too. It's true, you need that data, that measurable data, it's really important. I just have a couple of things. What happened to the Lifeline program? It kind of disappeared.
Well, we realized our next step was to start looking at the administrative infrastructure for it and what that process can look like and bring that back to you guys.
soon?
That's what we'll do, yeah.
Okay.
So,
And then I attended a LAFCO meeting. They are starting for the sewer district, wastewater, municipal service review. It'll probably take, I think, a year. They're saying 9 months, but I think ours is different and each one is different in its own way. And they had a rough draft of certain questions they're going to ask, but it's just the very, very beginning. So if you have any questions you want to send to Keen or me, I'll be going to those meetings or once a month.
And you're on the technical committee.
correct, yeah, we're having our next meeting in just, I think, a week and a half.
Can you give a little summary about how they're going? I'm just curious.
I can in the future,
Okay.
we had one introductory meeting at LAFCO, like, are you guys, just to get the process going. And our first official meeting, we'll actually talk about substantive issues, will be, now that the LAFCO board has approved the municipal service review scope and endorsed the technical advisory committee, et cetera, I think I put my calendar, somewhere next week, roughly we can have our kickoff meeting.
Okay.
And I'll definitely keep the board updated on those meetings and what back to it. So,
And by the way, for the water study, which I think they have one more meeting maybe to finalize that for that MSR. They did incorporate climate change. So I think we should too. Okay.
I think that's already been brought by I know the TAC group mentioned it last when we first met.
At our last CMSA meeting, it's going to come back to the board in February meeting. We talked about the strategic plan and update for the next 5 years. Strategic plan, and the Santa Fe representative is recommending that we ask for a study on consolidation in our strategic plan. So
We already did that.
that'll be some interesting discussions.
Yeah.
I said Lost Valley has a very comprehensive consolidation study. It's been made by an independent party from outside of California. And I said, CMSA in Santa Fe and Puerto Madero were part of it, but it's a very well-written document, and you should access that consolidation study before you hire someone to do another study. It looks like they're going to be doing another study. Get prepared for the consolidation study.
Okay. Next meeting, February 17th.
Okay.
5 p.m. Move to adjourn.